Anthony from the Webinar Vet, welcoming you to another episode of VETchat. This is all part of our series looking at individuals holding the CMO or CVO role in veterinary practice, and kindly sponsored by Royal Canin in partnership with Royal Canin. Very fortunate to have Brent Mayab on with Royal Canin as Chief Medical Officer. Brent's going to be involved in the conversations that we're going to have with one of my, I think I can say, very old friends without being too offensive, Gudrun Ravetz, who is, well, first of all, obviously a veterinary surgeon. She's the Chief Veterinary Officer at IVC Evidensia, also a Liverpool graduate, which many of you will know is where I went to as well. And we've known each other for a long time. Gudrun was president of SPIVs, president of BVA. I think she's just ticking them off in a few years, probably president of the Royal College. Who knows? But I'm going to let you introduce yourself properly, Gudrun. But obviously, just a real pleasure to have you on the podcast. I think you might have been on one before. We hold a lot of similarities in interests, in passions, like with sustainability, that I know we'll also be touching on during this podcast. But big welcome. It's always good to see you.
Thank you. And yes, we've definitely known each other for a long time and done some really good things together, I think. So it's nice to be here. So thank you. My path is what I always describe as a very wiggly one. I wouldn't say I ever set out with a structured career plan. As we always tell people, develop your plan. That was not on my radar. I think my plan, I always say, summarizes of I was really, really bad at saying no. So I never said no to anything and took lots of opportunities. And that's, I think, led me to some really exciting things that I've done within my career, but most importantly, the people that I've met. But a little potted history of where I've been. So I was a Liverpool graduate, failed my maths A-level, so didn't get in first time. And then Liverpool very kindly took me in after that. And throughout my veterinary degree, I really enjoyed it, but I sort of felt that there was a constant bit of veterinary is also a business, and I felt that throughout my career, throughout my degree, I wasn't understanding the business side of it. Every time I went into EMS and I saw the practices, how they were being run, I thought, I'm not learning that bit too. So I think it was the final year when you do what used to be your elective, I asked if I could do a business elective. And again, I was really lucky to be taken under the wing by people who gave me support to look at actually how to run a veterinary practice business, and did a little project within the Liverpool Small Animal Hospital at the time. And I think that just gave me an interest in all aspects of veterinary. And then I came out and went into small animal practice, but in that year did a certificate in business management at the Open University. Again, just wanted to get to know the kind of, how do you run a practice, because a lot of it is around the people, either the people that you engage with, your team, or the people that you have the privilege of caring for their animals. And that kind of, I think, inquisitiveness, maybe nosiness, I'm not sure, carried me through a lot. And then, I was, my partner's a medic, and I was sort of looking at their structured career path. And I was always thinking, gosh, I love what I do and I love the variety, but I also quite like the path that he's got and that structure. So I was always thinking, where can veterinary go? What can we learn? What can we do? And I think that just got me interested in volunteering in the profession. So in my first years in practice, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I think I was wanting to see what else there was. So that's when I joined the SPIVs Council as a council member. And that was brilliant because it just gave me the opportunity to meet people in the veterinary world who ran practices or did things outside of veterinary. And it just opened your eyes to all the things within veterinary as well as clinical practice. And, through all the times that I've spent either looking at retention, motivation, satisfaction in the career, or looking at thriving careers of people, I think it's quite natural that after a few years in any job, it's not you don't like your job, you just think, gosh, I need a bit of something, a variety, a bit of a change. And I think volunteering in the profession with SPIVs gave me that, because it gave me that opportunity to see other stuff. And that led me, I think, into kind of looking at other areas. So I moved in and out of kind of management, while always maintaining a clinical time in my career. So I was in clinical part of the time and a kind of management roles in various jobs. and then ultimately became SPIV's president, which was brilliant and an eye-opener. I'm sure we can talk about that. I moved into working with Simply Health because I'd been working sort of on the UK side with the Banfield franchise at the time, back in 2002, 2004-ish. So was probably one of the first vets that worked with health plans at the time. So I moved, so I kind of knew it from a UK perspective, moved into working with Simply Health while also doing some clinical work, became SPIV's president, as I say, had my son. And I kind of in between those did a graduate diploma in law, again, just out of curiosity and thinking, both my partner and I did it while training for an Ironman. And it was curiosity, and just being a mature student was fascinating and just doing something different. But I think it gave me a lot of transferable skills to what I do now. Then went to BVA.
I'm just worried because you have such a varied career.
Oh,
This
and I
is
can talk.
like 40 minutes. We're gonna have to
Sorry,
go.
and I can talk.
We've got to go for people who have done a bit less.
Okay, fine.
No, I'm being facetious, Gudrun.
No,
It's
no,
so
no. I will keep going.
just for people listening who perhaps aren't from UK, SPIVS is Society of Practicing Veterinary Surgeons. Have we used any other acronyms that we should explain? BVA is
British
obviously
Veterinary Association.
the association, which probably people will know. But yeah, sorry, I just wanted to tease you. So carry on.
Yeah. No, so I was with the British Veterinary Association, so BVA, and was their president for 3 years, which was probably one of my best experiences. Absolutely wonderful opportunity to challenge, to be part of something greater, to learn from people, to lead, to be supported, all of those things at a huge pace. And then came out of there, did some other roles, chaired the Good Veterinary Workplaces with BVA again, which was a real privilege because by that point I'd done a lot within the people side around motivation, satisfaction, retention, the gender discrimination work. And the Good Veterinary Places was a really positive outcome from that work, because it's always really good to find out what's going on, but if there's no outcome, you sort of, is there what's next, so what? So you've looked at it, so what? And so that was a really positive outcome from that. And then I moved to Vets for Pets and Pets at Home, where I was group chief veterinary officer there, and have the privilege of being a non-executive director at the Veterinary Defence Society as well. And then came to IVC about 18 months ago. So all of it has been a massive wiggle. Oh, and Vet Sustain. So was one of the founding directors, volunteers at Vet Sustain, and chaired that for a while with a wonderful group of people. I think, Anthony, you know them well. So none of it was planned. None of it was. It was always a case of not saying no and taking an opportunity. It just gives you so much variety. It's exhausting, but lots of variety. And I think the biggest thing I learned was from the people. Just learning off lots of amazing people has been a real privilege for me.
I think you and Brent will have a lot to talk about. Brent's going to ask a couple of questions now, but I love that whole area of law and finance. And I know Brent is also a big fan of just looking at finance generally, both personal and professional and business. So I'm going to let you two guys. I know you both know each other, but yeah, you want to.
Well, there's so much here I want to talk about, but I want to make it useful not just for me but for the audience. And so I think I'll kind of approach it with sort of two kind of larger questions. So one, what a diverse career path, and you had experience in nonprofits and businesses of all types. So the first part of my question is, I'd love for you to share with us, a little bit of a compare and contrast between what it's like to be a leader and your leadership experience in some of those nonprofit organizations versus what it's like to be a leader now where you are in a business. And then I wonder if you'd also be open to maybe sharing with the audience a little bit about your experience ascending your leadership path as a woman.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think it is really important to look at to look at leadership in a variety of contexts, because sometimes, and I've talked about this. You what I never want to be is you look at somebody and think, gosh, I can't do what they do, because you can. Everybody can. I never set out to do any of this. And everybody has that sort of I'm not good enough imposter feeling about them. And I'm exactly the same. And you sometimes think, gosh, I'm doing this role, therefore I can only do this role. So I've led in, sort of association bodies, therefore that's my spot. That's how I lead. And actually, as vets, we constantly say we have these transferable skills, but then I think our own brain tells us that, oh, but I'm not good enough to do the next thing. And we really, really are. But it's so hard to step over into something that you don't think you've done before. So what I would say is leadership is leadership, whether you're in a not-for-profit, an association body, whether you're in a for-profit commercial organization, is leadership is about enabling people to thrive. I am very much a generalist, always have been a generalist, and I surrounded myself with people who are brilliant subject matter experts, brilliant at their job. I will never know what they know, but I hope that I can at times inspire. Hopefully I can support them to thrive, and as a team we can achieve. But ultimately for me, I am the one who I'm accountable. It's my responsibility to be accountable for either way. I should be the one who is accountable. I think there are obviously differences because there's differences in focus, but whether we look at any business type has to be viable. They have to be financially viable. They have to be responsible businesses. They have to be morally viable. They have to be regulatory viable. And at IVC we talk about purpose and profit, and you can't have either without the other. You have to have profit to be a financially sustainable business, and you have to have purpose because people work for purpose. And in every organization it's been about the purpose. The bit the how the focus works might be different at different times in different types of organizations, but nobody can work without purpose, or I would struggle to work without purpose. I think when I look back to my time, particularly at BVA, that was phenomenally diverse. So I could be looking at welfare of chickens at slaughter at one meeting, and then looking at breed welfare problems in puppies at another aspect. So hugely diverse, and actually with a feeling of sort of significant responsibility to promote the profession, to do the right thing for the profession. So a different sense of responsibility than, say, where I am now, where I have a wonderful team that are phenomenal in what they do, and my job is to elevate that clinical voice and be that voice in the executive, and to make sure that we are a sound financial viable business that has a purpose to what we do. So I think there's different sort of levels of focus, but ultimately leadership is about helping something to support people to thrive in that purpose-driven organization. So I don't see huge amounts of difference. I think there is differences, when I look at, say, working with volunteer organisations where you might lead, whether that's in schools or veterinary organisations or what that is. There is a difference there because everybody's a volunteer and time is precious. And we all know time is precious. And that can be hugely, hugely rewarding because you have purpose-driven people who are giving their free time, and that's a privilege to gain that from people. And you can do amazing things with people's passion, but also they have day jobs, they have families, they have to make a wage themselves. So it can sometimes for everybody be quite frustrating because you want to head down there at 100 miles an hour, and actually you've got to go at 1 mile an hour because you've got to go and get dinner ready, and then you've got to go to work. So there is a different, I think, level or style of leadership when you're working with volunteers and accepting the pace and the sort of boundaries in which you can work. I think it's just knowing your people in leadership, or I hope it is, because that's what I rely on.
Yeah.
Being a woman in leadership, so it's an interesting question, and and sometimes we can feel, should we ask the question, shouldn't we ask the question? And I think
Yes,
we
I felt
should,
that way.
because I think we should ask the question, because I think it is a question people think about. And I think, again, I'm a firm believer in you can only aspire to be something that you see as something you can be. So if your leader never talks about sort of the human facts of their life, or that actually they need to leave work at 6 because they're going to get dinner ready, or they're going to take their child to something, or they've got caregiving with their parents, then you think, gosh, I can't be that person because they're superhuman, and nobody is superhuman. So I think we do need to talk about sort of the challenges that we've all faced. I think, I have been mentored by phenomenal men in my career. I could spend my entire podcast shouting out people who have I think inspired and led me. The two that I will shout out are my parents. You look up, and they were my inspiration. But I have been mentored by phenomenal people, including men. Yes, I think I look back and I have had areas where you think, now, gosh, that wasn't the right thing to say. And you feel a bit uncomfortable. We talk a lot about intent and impact. Was that their intention, to make me feel uncomfortable as the only female in the room? Probably not. The impact at the time was. So I think it's really important that we do constantly look at how the impact of what we do has on, particularly if there is a minority in that room, and how we use our own privilege to support other people who may be in that minority as well, who are not experiencing the majority of the room. So I've definitely felt that. I think, it's difficult to point to things. I think some of it is kind of the culture change that has come through, and we've navigated that, and the profession is really navigating that. So when I did the gender discrimination work with BBA in the University of Exeter, we did find that there was gender discrimination. Again, you look at intent and impact, but we have to look at these things, acknowledge them, hold a mirror to ourselves, and move forward. We don't want to use them to stop us doing something. We want to move forward. I had my son in 2012 when I was SPIVS president, and then he was 3 when I was BVA president. I'm not going to lie, that was tough. That was really, really tough. But I think what I have found is you can do things if the people around you and the workplace you work for are supportive. So I have been phenomenally lucky with a partner who sees me absolutely as complete equal. So when I took up the BBA president, he took a year off work to look after our son. He has supported me the whole way. When I joined BVA, I was quite keen that we used to have sort of dinners in the evening with other association bodies. And I said, well, let's make this child friendly. We don't need to have these dinners in the evening. Let's have them at lunchtime or lunchtime get-togethers. Because I'm sure the team members don't want to stay late. So let's make this more family friendly. I remember a couple of times when, my childcare did fail, and my son was sat next to me as I was chairing a meeting with headphones on, watching Poor Squad. And nobody cared. I think I was more concerned than anybody else. But it's tough. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not. There's guilt, whether you're whatever parent you are or guardian, there is guilt. And I've been there with the guilt, but I think I'm a better parent for feeling fulfilled in what I do. But I couldn't do it without support. I couldn't do it where I work now. So whenever I've worked, I've always worked. So I'm don't work full time. So I'm 4 days a week. I mean, I think we all know that we always stretch that 4 days, but because before my son went to high school, we did flexi homeschooling, so he was always homeschooled on a Friday, that my partner and I shared. And that ability to be flexible in a workplace was always a red line for me. If they couldn't accommodate the flexibility I needed to still be the parent I wanted to be, then that was not the place for me. I think it's got a lot better for women now, because I think we recognise that. I still think it's probably not equal. And what we really, really need is more male to step up and go, I want to work part-time because I'm doing childcare. Or so
Yeah.
if it becomes to the point where it doesn't matter the sex who's asking, you're just a parent, then I think we start to get true equality.
Gudrun, I've seen the surveys, I think, and the sustainability reports, the annual reports, I think, for both of your organisations, and we're now seeing much more inequality at a senior level of women to men. So it's not 20/80, it's roughly 50/50.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you and congratulations for the work that you've done. It's taken 10 years, but that's kind of normal. These things don't change overnight, do they? And I think it's really interesting because if a man was president of SPIVS or BVA, nobody would be really asking questions about childcare. So I think that's still something. And
Yeah.
all congratulations to your husband for taking that year off, because probably not many men would have done that. So I think it's really fantastic to see that progress, and I think certainly in the UK you've been a big part of that. So thank you for that work that you've done.
Thank you. Very it's very important to me. I think it makes
Yeah.
a better profession. I think it makes a better working environment. Yes, we've got steps to make for everybody, not just women. But I think we've made huge journeys, and the more it is interesting because you're right. I got asked that question a lot when I was BVA president. Doesn't your child miss you? Don't you want to be back home?
Yeah.
Which they wouldn't. And again, intent and impact. Were they intending to kind of imply that I wasn't being a good enough mother? No, I don't think so. But the impact kind of makes you feel. Are you asking me that because I'm a mom? Or but I think I was the fourth female BVA president in something like 150 years. Since I've been there, we've had loads of fantastic female and male BVA presidents. So things are changing. That's good.
I think it's also, if you look at that model of parenting, between men and women, that has been going on for hundreds of years. So to change
Yeah.
that doesn't change within 18 months. And so the questions that were being asked were, I think, they were questions that weren't surprising questions. And it's
Yeah.
great that within that sort of 10, 15-year time, I think the question's less likely to be asked. We've asked it today because I think it is still significant.
Yeah. I
But
think, like I said at the beginning, I think it's important to talk about it because it's tough. Whichever parent you are, it's a struggle doing that. And it's about finding the right support networks for you, the right supportive working environment for you, and actually just challenging those norms. So saying, do we really need to meet in the evening? No, no,
yeah.
we don't. Let's go home.
And also having Zoom meetings rather than having to traipse
Yeah.
across the country and be away for a long time.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah. I think there's ways of working.
even if the children aren't involved, you will miss your partner as well if you're away a lot, and that can affect relationships, can't it? So it goes,
And,
and also
we're
friendship.
all caregivers at either end of the spectrum, but also, we talk a lot about work life balance. My happy place is out on the fell or in a lake. It's the countryside, it's the nature. And it's important that we are all able to find our own space in our own time, whether you have children or not. Your free time, your work life balance is equally important. And we need to protect that.
Gudrun, I've got a couple of questions to ask you. First of all, why did you want to become a vet?
I think I am that traditional textbook answer of I always wanted to be a vet. I had dogs. I loved animals. I was always out in nature, and there was nothing else. I literally cannot remember anything else that I wanted to do.
My next question is about your field. I'd like to know how the field is getting on.
So yes, we talk about my field. I'm not sure if it's lazy gardening or it's rewilding. So I'm very privileged to live in Cumbria in the middle of nowhere with a bit of a field, and we are lazy gardeners, but we're also trying to rewild and bring back biodiversity. So I think last time we spoke, I don't know if it was you. I was showing my hedge planting, my row of hedges, and trying to stop the sheep nibbling at them. But so we have but the field's looking good actually. I don't know if it's just this year, but the insects, we've had loads of insects this year, really positive insect life. And the bird life is better than last year. So still work in progress, but I love my field.
And Gudrun, how is your pleaching? Are you a good pleacher? Do you know what pleaching is?
No, that's a new one
I,
on me.
I
No.
did. Well, we
Is
also
this a new job for me?
yeah, well, I think you're already doing it. We've been doing this work with Lancashire Wildlife Trust with Cutacre, and as part of the Veterinary Green Discussion Forum, if we make some money from that, it's a not for profit. We give that to Lancashire Wildlife Trust. If they have a project that another company comes in on, we kind of tenfold the income.
Oh,
Okay.
So we put
Bro.
in 4K, and I think it was one of the environmental landfill companies put in 40K. So we put loads
Brilliant.
of hedging in, and pleaching is how you actually create the hedge by with the to bend the branches so they create a
Oh,
hedge. So that's the
yeah,
Lancashire
yeah,
way
yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
pleaching.
Mine,
And
mine,
that's
mine were from teeny
very
tinies.
small.
So waiting for them to grow to be able to do that.
I went out and did some pleaching at Cutacre, which was very exciting. And we actually then, because of the funding, we got the champion pleacher uh, hedge layer in the country, who instead of taking about an hour to do one piece, does several
Yeah.
kilometres in a day, and or hundreds of meters, not kilometres.
But this is a skill I think I need.
But talking about sustainability, obviously, very involved in Vet Sustain, but I think more so, and looking at it from a biodiversity perspective, I think we as vets should be more involved in that. We talk a lot about carbon. I don't think we talk enough about biodiversity. But I know you've got a really good person, at IVC, Sarah Heath, who's Chief Sustainability Officer. Is there a close relationship between the two of you? Because I think as Chief Medical Officer, Chief Veterinary Officer, looking at things like pharmaceutical stewardship, anesthetic gases, there seems to be a lot of areas where you should be working very closely together. Is that something that you do?
Oh, absolutely. As you know, the sustainability is very close to my heart. And as vets, we absolutely sit in that middle of people, planet, and animals, and we are, we are closer to it, I think, than anybody else. And so I think, I feel a moral responsibility. I'm in a very privileged position. I feel a very moral responsibility to leave the planet in a viable position and better than the way I found it. I think as a profession, we have huge amounts to add. And as a business, we do. I mean, our positive paw print, I think, gives you a far better explanation of all the positive things we do than I can ever do in the time we've got. But absolutely. So my team works very closely with Sarah Heath, and we're very lucky to have Kat Curtis recently join us as well. So within my team, I have the infection prevention control, and they very much look at what it says the name does, but also the antimicrobial stewardship and prudent use of antibiotics, looking at how we reduce our usages and reduce our infection rates. And they work very closely with Sarah. So it is a very much a hand in glove. It has to be. Sustainability impacts clinical hugely in a number of ways, and clinical, absolutely, we have to have an eye and a focus on sustainability. It's the right thing to do. It's definitely the right thing to do. There's a moral responsibility for doing it, but also, there can be a real financial positive for doing it as well. So it has benefits all round. And I'm really proud of the antibiotic usage reductions we have made in the business. But it's not just that. You mentioned the anaesthetic gas usage, and Kat Curtis is running the project on that at the moment. And her knowledge around this is phenomenal, and working very closely with my team on that. And I think everything that we do, we have an eye on that, whether it's chemical-free cleaning, whether it's our gloves off campaign, whether it's looking at so you'll have maybe seen the new research project that we're running around parasiticide usage, looking at the evidence base there, looking at running an external project on pet owner viewpoints as well. So really trying to get to grips on a topic that, the profession quite rightly is grabbing hold of, and there's a substantial body of evidence there, but we want to do more. So, I'm very proud of what we do. I'm very proud of the fact, as with any organisation, I think not only do you, you always want to surround yourself with brilliant people in your team, but if you only work in your silo as your team, you only achieve your swim lane. So any business, no matter what the size, you have to matrix work. And so my team matrix work very, very closely with sustainability, very closely with the clinics, very closely with operations and with communications, because it's great to do these things, and it's not about telling everybody what you're doing, but sometimes you can inspire people and actually nudge them by telling them. So communication is really important as well. If we've got a practice that's achieved the paw print toolkit, let's shout about it. That little bit of peer pressure and kind of competition in sustainability, really helps champions who really want to showcase what they're doing as well. So yeah, absolutely. It's not, my position, while I never thought I would be in this position, I am incredibly privileged to work not only, as I say, with my team, but with sustainability, with marketing, with comms, with ops, but not just in the UK as well, globally. So, our infection prevention control, Anna Maria, she works from Sweden and has done some phenomenal things in Sweden. In fact, SonTF, praise Sweden as really how veterinary practitioners should do infection prevention control, and that was a massive thing. So you get to see what other countries are doing as well and learn from them. I think that's the biggest privilege, is that constant learning and actually being able to. Sometimes when you're a leader, you can take all those learnings and then spread them out because you see them. And that's part of like sharing that learning and bringing everybody together, sort of going, oh, you're doing this over here, let's connect you. And actually the project will be even bigger and better. And I get that privilege all the time.
I think it's also telling those positive stories. We're duty bound to tell those, because sometimes, you watch the news and it's all bad
Yeah.
news because, good news doesn't sell newspapers, or I don't suppose anything sells newspapers anymore. So social media or whatever you want to talk about. So I think we are duty bound to be telling
Agreed.
stories that actually enthuse people rather than depress people. So sometimes, though, within communication, it doesn't happen. I've looked a lot at communication, and I know Brent has as well. It's so important to keep on just telling that story, because you tell it once, that's not enough. You have to just keep on telling the same story, don't you, Brent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think positivity gets you so much further, just in how you feel, in sort of inspiring people. Sometimes it can, you just, whether you're having a bad day or whatever it is, or you've just read lots of stuff that seems really negative and it can just seem like it just is. But I think positivity just lifts you up.
That's a good segue to my final question then. And that is, one of the things that is really cool about this series is we get to talk to leaders like yourself and hear your really cool background, which I think is going to be very inspiring to the audience. And the other thing we get as well is we get to hear, because we're interviewing different leaders from around the world, is we get to hear these sort of different challenges. And I wonder if you could share with the audience, specific to Europe, what's a challenge that you see in Europe right now that may be a little bit unique to Europe? I guess it doesn't have to be, but what's one challenge you see in Europe, and what do you see as maybe a solution?
I think the challenges are. I think they are quite uniform across Europe. I think the challenges, there's probably two or three. So there's always the people aspect. So retention and recruitment in the veterinary profession. It's not. I don't want to call it a challenge. There's an opportunity there, as we've always talked about. How do we retain? How do we motivate? How do we get sustainable, thriving careers? How do we, make business models that support the different types and ways that people want to work? Because I think we do have a recruitment and retention challenge across Europe, and that affects how we can serve the people and the animals that we serve. So I think that is one aspect, and I think we're all recognizing that, and it is about how do we provide those careers that do give change, do give growth, do give flexibility, do give that kind of part-time working nature if people want it. Just looking at the way that we do out of hours care, so actually having dedicated out of hours care, so people aren't doing the out of hours 24/7 if that's not how they want to work. How do we manage that? But that also comes with, how do we manage the expectations of the owners and the animal keepers to whom we serve their animals? So their expectations, quite rightly, are changing and are growing. They're influenced either by things that they see in the media or their access to knowledge. And I think I think there is a challenge and an opportunity on how we balance that need of our clinicians and our veterinary teams to provide thriving, sustainable careers in the way that they wish to work, but also manage the expectations of owners. And with that, I think the constant and it's exciting evolution of knowledge, sort of research, evidence base, new techniques, new drugs, new foods, whatever that is, because actually, science explosion is exciting and fun. But as busy clinicians, how do we take all that in? How do we work with that? How do we make sure that that is accessible both to our clinicians but also to our pet owners? I think that's quite a challenge in itself as well. Certainly at IVC, we invest quite a lot in our learning and education to support our clinicians, because I think that confidence and competency journey, especially when you're in the first part of your career, I certainly know how I felt coming out and the sort of rabbit in headlight feeling. I think that's so important to set you up to be confident for the future. Also, we haven't touched on our quality improvement. I'm very proud of the work that Laura and my team's been doing around quality improvement, along with David in research. We've been looking at sort of structured evidence-based guidelines, our care frameworks that are tools, as Laura always tells me, tools, not rules, to support clinicians with those common clinical diseases that bring in all the new knowledge, etc. With that looks at both welfare and diagnostics and treatment and client expectations, just to support. So I think it is, how do we navigate the new world of how it's important for us to work, how it's important for our animal owners and keepers to interact and be with their animals and get the best of care, and also how we do that and get all that knowledge and learn to use all that knowledge. So I think it's just excitement. It's exciting evolution, but it's keeping up.
Excellent.
Brilliant. I just think we should still speak for another hour and a half. I think we could still keep going and hopefully be useful to whoever was listening on the other end. But I'm conscious that we probably can't go on a lot longer. We haven't even talked about the bike, Gudrun. I mean, I know you bike everywhere, but I presume you haven't biked down to Bath yet from the Lake District.
No, no.
But
And
it's maybe
actually,
not a little idea for you.
well, I've been on the mountain bike a lot recently. Scary,
Ah,
but I'm not that good on a mountain bike. I'm better on a road bike, but I've been enjoying it.
yeah. That's another podcast, Brent. We need to get Gudrun back for the second half, don't we?
Yeah, I think so. I
The
think so.
triathlon podcast.
We've
Yeah,
just
when I've
done the
got time.
swim. It's the
Yeah,
bike next
yeah,
time.
yeah. Bike next time. That'll be a delight in my element. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Gudrun, we know, well, I know how busy both you and Brent are. So, for both of you to come on and for us to have this chat is a real privilege for me. So thank you so much for coming on. Thanks
Very
for Royal
welcome.
Canin being able to bring these
Yes,
people onto
thank
the
you.
podcast as well. And obviously, Brent, always love chatting to you as well. So, yeah, I think this has been a good one. Hopefully
It's
people
a
will
good
enjoy
one.
it.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on. Thanks everyone for listening, and hopefully see you on a podcast or webinar very soon.